It's one of the biggest rivalries in the PUL. It's a rematch of the thrilling championship game from a season ago. It is the Premier Ultimate League Game of the Week. It's Raleigh Radiance hosting DC Shadow here in bright and sunny Durham, North Carolina. I'm Daniel Parness alongside Saul Organic to bring you this one. Saul, like I said, one of the greatest rivalries that we have in the PUL. Two teams that play each other multiple times during the regular season. They often square off in the postseason. First game of the year for DC, second game of the year for the 1-0 Radiance. What are you looking forward to seeing in this one?
Yeah, Daniel, great to be with you today. Excited for another season of Radiance Ultimate here. I think you said it. I think this is a rivalry that never disappoints. These games are always close right to the end. And honestly, for me, there's a decent amount of turnover for both of these teams. And I'm excited to see how the new look versions of both of these teams respond to what is a big game early in their seasons, DC, their first game of the year.
The Discraft Ultra Star is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. This live broadcast of the Premier Ultimate League is brought to you by Breakmark Ultimate Apparel. Go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete Collab shops.
Daniel, we've got essentially a perfect day for Ultimate here. It's maybe high 70s with minimal cloud cover, essentially no wind, which is typical of our beautiful field here at Carolina Friends School.
Yeah, new home field for the Radiance this year. Really excited for this place that has a pretty rich Frisbee history, Saul. You might know a little bit about that yourself. Looks like we are just a couple moments away from the opening pull.
I can tell you honestly, last time I played on this field, we did not have a scoreboard in the corner of the field.
Thankfully, we have upgraded since then. Shout out to Carolina Friends School for hosting the Radiance home games this season. And we are underway. Lila Stanlin sending down the opening pull for the Radiance. It'll be DC in white starting on offense.
Immediate foul on the mark here from Raleigh.
That was Naomi Anderson on Kira Flores. No contest on the foul call.
Split stack look for the Shadow.
Julia Harris now. Centers it back to Flores. Sydney Rader in the backspace with Flores for now. Rader able to catch up with that one. Kat Risman with the quick dish. And now Flores surveys the field. Rita Fetter paints the forehand over to the near sideline. Rader just able to find Flores for the reset. DC working in some cramped space. Nice grab under pressure. Willie Johnson makes the play there for DC. Patient offense so far as Shadow is working in the red zone. Fetter gets it back to Flores. Allie Wallace gets her first touch.
Big time matchup there with Jenny Way.
Dominant point from Kira Flores. So many touches in the backfield there. Finds the space to cut for the end zone. Reels it in for our opening score.
Yeah, really interesting point to get us started there, Daniel. We saw the DC offense spending a decent amount of time over here on this near side trap sideline. That was a strategy that the Radiance had a lot of success with against Austin last week. But with calm conditions here, the Shadow were able to pop some high release backhands around, and you saw them finally hitting pay dirt there when they were able to hit a continuation all the way to the break side. I really want to call out Kira Flores here. By my eye, she had a breakout season for both Shadow and Scandal last year. She's sort of in that sweet spot, just entering her athletic prime, having finished up her, college and U24 type participation, and I think the sky's the limit for her. She's a really agile, versatile player on offense, and I expect her to take on a lot of load for this Shadow offense this year.
Yeah, really interesting to see how DC fills out those touches this year. A lot of the team that won the title last year is back, but some of what you would think of as the very top performers not returning. No Claire Trope this year, no Cammie Groom. So even though it's an experienced unit, you might need to see some new playmakers making the big plays step up, but it was an effortless, I guess I shouldn't say effortless, but a very impressive first O point for that unit. So we see Julia Hoffman making an extended snag, some contact on the play as well. Not sure which way this foul call is going.
Yeah, Daniel, of note, we've got, both teams turned over some talent. Radiance in particular losing Alex Barnett, who was a huge part of their offense last year. We've got Emily Shikuski and Ellen Yu slotting into O-line handler type roles for the group this year, and both incredibly talented with the disc. I'm really excited to see how they're able to take advantage of that new opportunity. I've been around for enough cycles here watching this team that, as different talent leaves the team and younger talent comes in and takes a step up and takes on sort of a new role, it's always exciting to see the first iterations of that in the season.
That's always the excitement of a new season, right? So seeing which players have improved and take on new roles. Nice grab by Erica Birdsong underneath, under pressure from a bidding Ashley Gentilette. Certainly one to keep an eye on from a DC point of view. Audrey Lyman finds Caitlin Gross underneath. Again, tight defensive pressure from DC. Gross finds Mary Rippey. Lyman resets to Gross. Shikuski now. Shikuski to Rippey to get it off the side. The swing to Gross as Radiance is knocking on the door. Great work from the Raleigh handler unit. Just those 4 players doing all the work in the red zone. I believe it was Lyman there for the score.
Daniel, honestly, the first 2 points have me pretty excited for this game.
Yeah.
There's heavy pressure on these undercuts down the field. I think, it's a sort of baking sun this afternoon, and there's some opportunity for players to sort of ease their way into this game, and I don't think anybody's taken that invitation so far. I'm fired up for the rest of this game, and once again we saw more success for the offensive unit there when they were able to break it off this near sideline to attack the weak side of the defense.
You'd certainly have to say that Ultimate is an offensive game, right? The advantage is pretty much always with the offense.
Especially in conditions like this.
Yes, very still. And I think we have to be thankful for that, because you and I both know we certainly can be prone to some pretty windy conditions in this neck of the woods at this time of year. But it really is. You really couldn't ask for a better day for some Ultimate. So we'll see which defense gets the first advantage here.
We see Kat McGuire on the field for the first time for Shadow here. Another split stack orientation for DC.
McGuire, one of the bigger names that Shadow would have added to the roster this season. Made the playoffs a year ago with Indy Red. Should be a big addition to that backfield group. McGuire has it now.
Little stagnant downfield from the DC Cutters. Allie Wallace looking to get involved here.
And that one, it gets away from McGuire. A little bit chaotic from the stack there as the count rose. And we do have our game's first turnover.
Yeah, big opportunity here for Raleigh. Last week they won more by attrition than through efficiency with their D unit, but if they can cash this one in, that'll be a huge, huge advantage early in this game.
Ginny Riedel, who was not there a week ago in Austin, unable to make that grab on the second attempt. So not one completion on the Radiance break chance.
more handler sagging as we've come to expect after a week from this group.
Wallace looks for Flores. That connection is true. That one goes off the tips of Flores. Seemed to be a simple completion. Maybe a slight lack of focus there on the reel in from Flores, and Raleigh has their second break chance at the point. But again, a short-lived one, swatted back down to the ground. Nice play defensively by McGuire there. And so DC, after the couple of turnovers, are able to go the other way, punch in at the hold.
Kind of an unfortunate sequence of events for the Raleigh D-line offense there. Seemed like we had a Raleigh handler clearing, and their defender just lagged out into the lane and able to knock down an unsuspecting underpass coming from Riedel there. In my experience, this is an important hold for Raleigh coming up here. If you get a couple turns and don't make much progress, it's sort of puts a little bit of extra pressure on the O-line and feels like a bigger opportunity for the opposing D-line to show that they can be a little bit more efficient coming back the other way. So we'll see how this point rolls out.
And so we've mentioned that this is a big rivalry, but in truth, of late, it has been a bit one-sided. Shadow winning the last 5 matchups between these two, including the championship game a season ago, and including in that stretch the most lopsided defeat in Radiance history, a 16-5 home defeat a couple of seasons ago. And with, like you said, some key members from Radiance departing from last season, really interested to see how they are able to kind of get back into even footing in this rivalry matchup.
Yep. I agree with that. We see Erica Birdsong initiating here. She was a big part of the last Radiance win over the Shadow. Shot goes up.
Gross looking for Birdsong, who has steps, and that's a beautiful shot for the end zone from Caitlin Gross. If the defense struggled on the last point for Raleigh, it did not carry over to the offense there.
So first 3 points of this game have been characterized by grinding underneath offense, and Raleigh comes out and decides to declare their big space offense open for business here. Caitlin Gross unleashes a nice 50-yard forehand out to space for Erica Birdsong in her first game back from a long-term injury that has kept her out of major competition since her last college national. So great to see her leg that one out.
Certainly a player who has the ability to be a top performer on a team like Raleigh. So we see that athleticism there, her ability to get open deep. And when she needs it too, she has so much length to make plays over people. Didn't need it there.
Yeah, I mean, Erica's just a complete player. She's got a really unique sort of combination of skills. Obviously, her size and her athleticism stand out, but she's got incredibly solid throws. She throws with power extremely well from both sides and generally operates in a way that's team-friendly on offense, not necessarily taking up a whole ton of space, just making really excellent cuts in spaces that are going to maintain sustainable offense for the group.
Feder picks up and centers to Flores. Johnson now finds Flores for the reset.
Loving this Lyra Olsen on Kira Flores matchup.
There's McGuire on the far side. Big gainer to Johnson this time. As again, Flores running the show for DC. This time it's Feder. Double bid, but pulled in for the score. Nice play over on the far side by Lily Johnson, but that is another assist for Kira Flores.
Really interesting point there. Lyra Olsen really digging in on defense, trying to force Kira Flores out of the backfield. Kat McGuire loosens her up with a really nice lefty backhand out to space, and then on the give-go switch on the goal line, it was a nice little counter move into the pocket on the break side behind the rolling defender and past the mark that still hadn't gotten set here. I expect Raleigh to bring that Lyra Olsen matchup to try to deal with Flores throughout this game. She was, by my eye, most impactful defender for the Radiance in week 1. Veteran player, but as fit as any of the players on the team, and brings a ton of punch on a turn for that D-line offense.
Looks like it'll be Jackie Wong on the pull for DC. Still looking for their first forced turnover of the game. Yu catches the pull and immediately centers to Lyman. Mary Rapey gets the first under. Here's Julia Hoffman. Yu to Shikuski, who gives it right back. Shikuski tried to get the give and go going, but Wong played it well defensively. Shikuski does end up getting it from Lyman, though, just outside the front cone. And she tries to knife that one in, looking for Hoffman. A bit too hot and off the fingertips. So Raleigh will commit their first turnover of the game on offense.
Radiance spacing breaking down just a little bit there on the goal line. Need a big response here on defense.
Wong will get it started for DC. She finds Amanda Murphy.
Murphy and Jackie Wong, a couple of former triangle-based players.
There's a good number of those on this DC outfit.
Really interesting matchup with Gentilette and Birdsong down the field here. Particularly because Gentilette loves to rip it deep on a turn, and Birdsong's got one of the biggest marks in the league here. Gentilette goes up huge.
Great grab, and she's looking for a big throw as well, looking for Murphy. Lyman gives chase, but Murphy held position the whole way, and that leads to an easy dish to Emily Kiver for the score. So big throw there from Gentilette after the big grab leads to our game's first break.
Yep, that is DC Shadow D-line offense in a nutshell right there. They got some solid disc movers with Jackie Wong, and Amanda Murphy loves to just buzz around the field. She's got infinite energy. And anytime Ashley Gentilette gets the disc, it's green light for a top deep receiver heading to the end zone. So Radiance need to be on the lookout for that, and we're going to see how this alternate O-line for the Radiance responds to that first break of the game.
Saul, what's the more demoralizing break to give up? Is it when you turn it very early in your own territory, or when you turn it just having been so close to scoring and giving up a full fielder?
I think it depends on the team, but I think with the perspective of this whole game, if you as a defense can force the opposing offense to grind out a long point, make them play by sort of your rules, and then get a turn after making them work, and then punch it in after making them play defense, I think that bodes well for you in the long run.
So we will see how Radiance respond to the game's first break. Olsen floats it out for Naomi Anderson. Natalie Wilson cuts across. Olsen. And now the continue forehand to the near side, but not the throw that she was looking for. It's swatted away by Maya Kikuchi.
Yeah, Cutler looking for Jenny Way in the end zone there.
So the Radiance offense will have their defensive prowess tested once again. Kikuchi able to get it off the far side.
And Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's their Finland import in Marika Korpinen.
With a name like Korpinen, I think you may just be right about that.
Korpinen. They've got a beautiful language over there. Not that I would understand it.
That throw into the ground from Ellen Mueller. Good pressure on the mark from Maddie Poletsky, and this one is looking deep for Wilson in the end zone. She reels it in, but is ruled out, I believe. We don't have a great angle here, but we'll say Willie was not the only person who thought she was in, but no matter, a few throws later. Oh, no, it looks like we might have some confusion back here.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't know what the proper ruling is when a player throws it up to themselves in celebration, but it was my perspective that she was in the first place, so.
Oh, did that happen after the first not score?
It was a premature celebration.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I had a steel beam right in my view
I
of
think
that.
it would be pretty unfortunate if this turns into a turnover for Red, but we shall see what the green justices have to say about this. Leah Olson calling her own number there in transition. Love the look. Excellent execution. But honestly, you got to credit Wilson with some game IQ there. Catched in the celebration, making this a conversation. She's not Lisa P.
I'm not entirely sure that's what she was going for. And I have to say, not to knock our observers here who do a very thankless job, but just based on the number of steps that Wilson had to take to get back to the line to restart play, I really feel like she was in on that first sequence. And unfortunately, we cannot hear the conversation happening between the observers and Tayara Romero-Pena.
All right, Daniel, assuming we've got a goal that stands here, curious to see if we see any curveball coming from the Raleigh defense. Got about 2 minutes left on the clock. Not quite game management mode yet, but we've seen a lot of vanilla person defense, a lot of forced flicks so far. We will have to see what's... Sourbeer just gestures for a turnover.
And it looks like it will be a turnover.
That's unfortunate.
I generally opposed to using the phrase unfortunate in the commentary booth, but it does feel apt in this situation.
I'm not a neutral commentator, Daniel. Never been accused of that.
That is fair. But yeah, I can't really recall seeing a similar turnover in all my days of calling Frisbee games, but nonetheless, it is DC's disc. They'll have a chance to add another break on this lead. Jess O. Unable to complete it, though, is Cara Tinson.
Traditional Lila Stanlin run-through block.
So nice to have Lila back on the Radiance after taking last season off. Just the epitome of what you want a defensive player to be. Just always plays with so much heart, so much fight.
We got a timeout coming in from the Raleigh sideline. See if we got the O-line back out there. They're pretty well rested at this point. But so far, a strong point for DC. This is obviously a point where they were pulling to start, and I think they're pretty pleased with, forcing a long point, turnover, multiple turnovers with an asterisk.
I don't think they do asterisks in the stats. But
I know the stats guy.
Those of us who saw it know. Yeah, this does feel like a critical point now in this game with not long before the end of the quarter.
Yeah, I do love the element that the end of quarter brings. If the Radiants are able to punch in a break after, and then prevent DC from scoring into the end of quarter possession, I think, either 4-4 or down 1 with them having the last possession of the quarter is a comfortable position to be in and gets you sort of a half break here. All starts with, obviously, punching this one in off the stoppage.
So is it still a half break if it happens at the end of the quarter?
Yeah, it's a 50% break.
So wholesale changes, it looked like, for the Radiance line. Certainly some personnel changes for DC as well. There's Yu making the grab, the big backhand fake. Now she settles for the gainer to Birdsong, but we have a pick call a little bit further downfield.
And that's what you see from LNU. When she gets the disc up the field with nothing but green space and isolated cutters in front of her, she is super dangerous reaching into that deep space. Incredibly powerful thrower.
Birdsong. Might have got a reset on the stall there as Gentilette backed away. Shakuski has it now. Finds Yu. Nice throw from Yu to Gross for a nice gainer.
Adaptive marks here from DC.
Rippy and Shakuski not quite on the same page on that reset. DC will have another chance to break. Wong unfurls the big backhand looking for Gentilette, and Gentilette has plenty of space. And if there's a more sure-handed player in the league than Ashley Gentilette deep, it's not a long list, as DC is able to punch in another break and take it to their largest lead of the game.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm really disappointed that we didn't get more production out of that inside forehand from LNU. She threw a really, really fantastic spot that led her receiver into a lot of breakside momentum, but things sort of slowed down, and a double move in the backfield led to a transition opportunity the other way for a shadow, and so far they seem to have more jump so far in this first quarter. A lot of pressure on these unders. I think the Radiance would do well to try to set themselves up to force this DC D-line to respect their deep game just a little bit more.
And, you know, if you'd expect to see a team with a little bit more juice early in this game, you wouldn't expect it to be the team that drove on a bus from DC today.
Yeah.
Spoke with the DC coaches a little bit about how they're able to travel so well in a league where it's so difficult to travel, and the coaches shouted out the team's ownership group that really allows the team to travel in a larger number than you see a lot of teams get to.
Yeah, Radiance went to Austin last weekend with, I believe, 15 players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and DC has just as many players rostered as Radiance does today. So if there's an advantage in energy for Raleigh, it won't be a massive one you wouldn't expect. You see Natalie Baumgarten throwing into pressure, but a nice grab there under that duress by Emma Cole, but the throw not on target downfield, and that is really just a poorly timed turnover as well with 11 seconds left. DC now likely gets the last possession of the quarter one way or another. Romero Pena finds the always inviting target of Allie Wallace. Oh, and that one is just a drop underneath by Mueller, and that will bring the first quarter to a close as the clock hit zeros just before that drop from DC. So they will take a 5-2 break into our first intermission period. Couple of break advantage. And we will take a quick breather after we get one last look that quarter-ending turnover. We will take a breather with the teams. Be back in just a moment. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Premier Ultimate League. The PUL is a 501c6 nonprofit. This league has been community funded since day one, and we are so grateful for the support. We ask that you consider donating to help us continue to transform and fulfill our mission. Head to premierultimateleague.com to donate today. So Saul, we saw a very even start through those first 4 points of the game, 2 holds apiece. If anything, I thought Raleigh looked like the sharper team. Their 2 holds were clean, whereas DC had a couple turns on their second hold of the game. But since then, it's been all DC. What are they doing, or what is Raleigh not doing, depending on what your eyes are telling you here, that's opened up this 3-goal lead for DC?
It's a good question. Honestly, I think obviously DC not able to punch in that last possession at the end of the quarter, but personnel-wise, I would have liked to see a slightly more veteran group of players out there for that last possession before the end of the quarter for the Radiance. I think that we saw some inconsistent time management last week against Austin. There was 1 turnover that was brought back under 10 seconds by an excellent timeout from the sideline. So, this is a pro setting, and managing the end of quarter is the difference. Essentially it's as much as a 4-goal swing to maintain that last possession of the quarter. Prior to that, I think, for me, what I saw was defensive game plan being executed by all of the DC players, asking Raleigh to fight through heavy pressure underneath, asking the Raleigh offense to throw deep against challenging marks. And so far, Raleigh hasn't proven that they're going to consistently break through that defense. And then on a turn, it was the Shadow veterans, Murphy, Gentilette primarily, driving the bus, and Raleigh's O-line has not yet shown that they are up to the task in transition. So I expect the Shadow to go back to the well until they're shown that they can't do that by this Raleigh O-line defense.
And Raleigh does get to start this quarter on offense, so
which just underlines the importance of the previous end of quarter.
And to touch on that further, I really felt like that was a strength of the team a season ago under then first-year head coach Jenna Dahl. So a little surprising to see the team struggle a little bit at the end-of-quarter situation there, but one we hope will revert back to its strength status as it was last year. Claire Hackle makes the grab around midfield. Gross to Lyman, and Lyman floats a backhand to Birdsong. And Birdsong tries to knife that forehand just down the line, but the edge wasn't quite there, sails away from you.
More goal line trouble for this Raleigh offense. Honestly, their flow has looked pretty comfy the whole way up the field, and then just reaching into the end zone from a challenging position. Szykuski close on a block, and Sourbeer reaches.
Can Gross get there defensively?
Oh, yeah.
Yes! Brilliant play by Caitlin Gross, defending the deep space. And that's the kind of defensive play we did not see from the Raleigh O-line in the first quarter.
But it is the kind of defensive play we do expect from 45 Caitlin Gross. That is her at her best.
Szykuski just able to find Hackle at the tail end of that stall. Lyman puts Szykuski on the sideline, and she wants Rippy deep, but that one is too flat. You saw Szykuski nodding to her downfield target as she got that disc, but the throw was not up to par.
Yeah, just overthrown there. Maybe want to see Szykuski invert and throw that forehand to the back corner. We know she loves that throw so much.
Beans makes a nice gainer from O off the goal line.
That's a pretty well-informed mark from Mary Rippey there. She and Amanda Murphy, longtime teammates in the triangle, and Beans is a menace when she's off and running, but clearly not comfortable throwing that forehand into the deep space. And Mary's asking her to throw anything but that around back in.
Yeah, it allowed Raleigh to reset defensively after what could have been a perilous situation after the early big gainer. Forces DC into calling a timeout, in fact. Saul, does that timeout tell you that DC sensed a chance to maybe put this game away early?
That's not what I take away from that. I think that's just a coach knowing situationally when to use your timeouts. It doesn't really matter the count, to be honest. When you got a player trapped on the sideline at a rising stall, particularly with your D-line out there on the field, you're not going to get better opportunities to call that timeout. So you may as well utilize it in that situation, and it's going to optimize your chance to win regardless of the count. Here's that awesome layup block from Caitlin Gross.
And there's the second turn of the point from Raleigh. And Rippey did have steps.
Yeah, it's a good look. Unfortunately, it seems like maybe Shakuski had to throw that a little bit earlier than she would have otherwise wanted to based on the ceiling mark. We got Flores on the disc here on this near sideline with Jenny Way spying out in the deep space.
Marked by Anderson. Ritzman gets underneath of Stanland. Disc right back with Flores. Feder back to Flores. Raider now. DC able to work it down this fourth sideline pretty easily. Just outside the end zone now is Feder. Wallace unable to reel that one in, though. Raleigh survives the scare, and Jenny Way immediately boosts deep for Wilson. He's able to make the grab, and Wilson looking to continue right away. Disc is hanging. Swatted up in the air by Wallace, but reeled in by Cutler. And she is ruled in the end zone this time for the Raleigh score. Boy, some late resiliency defensively from Raleigh, just enough, and then get a little fortunate. Maybe flipping the fortune there a little bit on that missed block by Wallace in the end zone.
Gosh, Daniel, it just shows how much I know. Raleigh D-line offense testing Allie Wallace in the deep space multiple times, and I'm up here absolutely cringing. But the young talent that the Radiance D-line have imported this year ended up being Sadie Cutler to bring in the goal at the end of the play. Hopefully we can see another strong D-point from the Radiance defense. Is the first real opportunity they've had a chance to sort of get some traction against this shadow O-line.
So I don't think you need to be too tough on yourself. I think the cringe was fair. I think you give Allie Wallace that opportunity defensively 10 times. She's probably making it 7 or 8, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Jenny Way deserves some credit. There's a little late edge on that throw that puts it over the defender's shoulder. Really challenging angle to go up and defend against. So once again, D-line for Radiance looking to throw deep in transition.
It's been a little while since we've gotten to see them on the field, starting on defense anyway. Sydney Raider to Flores. Those two have really been anchoring the backfield so far in this game.
We see a vert stack from the DC offense here.
Nice run through defense. Tanya Procha makes the play defensively, and it leads to a quick break opportunity, and Raleigh converts.
That's a great point for the home team D-line, Daniel. We saw the Shadows start a lot of this game with split stack offense, and then they made a transition to a vert stack after a break. And we saw multiple cutters sort of cutting under and then bending out around the front of that vert stack, and Tanya Proch took that opportunity to really build up speed and get a block on that underthrow to one of the DC veterans, Kat Ritzman, someone who is very steady and a reliable option for the Shadow. So the fact that they were able to punch in this break for bookends for Tanya was a great sign for this D-line.
And you love to see that from Tanya as well, who was on the coaching staff a year ago due to injury. Back out there making an impact on the field this season. And gets the very impactful bookends. Really feels like that's the great thing about Ultimate, Saul. You know, one play, 1 point. You feel like you're right back in the game where, 2-3 minutes ago, it felt like Raleigh was in danger of being down 6-2.
Oh, yeah.
All
And
of a
here,
sudden it's 5-4.
yeah, we've got an alternate O-line here for the Shadow with Gentilette, Murphy, Jess O, Sour Beer.
And that pull rolls
Actually, I don't see
beyond
Jess Sour
Murphy.
Beer out there. Fantastic pull.
DC has to start deep in their own end zone, but Gentilette is unmarked.
And she's got Amanda Murphy.
Murphy gives chase. Pletzky in the area defensively, but not able to make the play. So DC, just like that, just outside the end zone. Here's Jess O. And she quickly gives it right back to Murphy for the score. So not the point defensively Raleigh was looking for. After starting deep in their own end zone, DC still had to make quick work of the hold.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you see when you got an alternative personnel group out there. The other team hasn't quite, spent their mental resources preparing to defend against the D-line's offense. But I don't know, if I'm down there, I'm seeing Gentilette, I'm seeing 33 and Murphy out there. I'm saying let's funnel that offense through any other combination than those two.
Yeah, if there's one player, especially an initiation point on this DC offense, that you don't want to leave wide open, I would say it's Gentilette.
Yeah, unmarked, I think, is the main key there.
Who we have down here is the only player in the entire league who has played every game of their franchise's existence in the league.
Does that go for deceased franchises as well, Daniel?
We'll say still currently active franchises. So.
I feel like there were a couple of Colombians that had something to say about that.
But yeah, Gentilette been, I would say, one of the faces, one of the names of the
yeah.
league since DC has been in existence for sure. So now we get to see how Raleigh responds.
Big old double team there. Love Pro Ultimate.
Great around from Shakuski, finds Gross. Birdsong wide open, but as open as you'll see because of a pick further downfield. So disc will go back.
And Daniel, that's Shakuski's bag right there. She's real comfortable with that throw. That's high skill, but that's 100% of the time for her right there.
She comes right back to it to find you underneath. Lyman to Hoffman, who adjusts well to the disc a little bit behind her. Raleigh winning the unders to this four side at the moment. An uncontested foul.
Yep, quick no contest in a tight space there from Tierra Romero Pena.
And Lyman just the right amount of touch down the line for you. Good answer from the Raleigh O-line. You get the clean hold.
Yeah, those are the types of possessions that you're going to have to be comfortable with as championship quality O-line, to be perfectly honest. There's heavy pressure there, but not a ton of legitimate block opportunities, and certainly attacking up this near side. DC transitioning their marks halfway through that point, but yeah, I want to see those Raleigh offensive cutters continue to attack with conviction, as we saw Caitlin Gross doing there at that point.
So I have to say, I'm excited because it feels like we got a game.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like we've got a real game, and I was a little worried there that Raleigh was a little in danger of this one getting out of hand early. We have seen it happen to this DC unit. DC responsible for the largest defeat in Radiance history.
And if I recall correctly, that was an ugly game in terms of weather. I think generally games in conditions like this are going to look closer because simply punching in breaks there's a sort of lower threshold to complete it. But, at the end of the game, at the end of today, it's going to be, a 2 or 3 point difference if it's close, and anything more than that I think represents. Oh, big shot goes up from Flores here.
Stanley in the area defensively, but the big grab! Lily Johnson pulls it down. DC with the big play to get the quick hold.
Lily Johnson, 31, taking on a big role for this shadow O-line so far today. Not a player that I was that familiar with from her participation with this team in the past. And not sure she's the intended target on this shot from Flores, but that's why you got a player like that on your team to hunt that one down with Ritzman and Stanlin in the vicinity.
And Saul, you may not be familiar with her impact on this team in the past because this is her first year.
Fair enough.
On DC. She was one of the players, one of the first-year players the coaches highlighted as someone to keep an eye out for. So I think you have to give kudos to the coaching staff there. They called that one right. Certainly would say it has the top spot on this game's highlight reel so far.
I'll give that to 45 Caitlin Gross personally myself.
That's a fair call. Fair call. Wong on pulling duty once again for DC. Lyman finds you for the reset. Gross pops it over the head of the mark for Hoffman. Hackle adjusts well to reel that one in. Quick disc movement from Raleigh through traffic. Rippy over on the far side. Dumps it back to Lyman. Break mark a little tall, but if you're going to throw a little tall, Birdsong is a nice person to have on the end of it. And she finds Hoffman for the Raleigh hold.
That's much more like it for the Radiance end zone O-line, end zone offense there. That sort of 15-yard margin with the offense trying to go into that handler weave type motion has been difficult for them. And there we saw another inside shot. That time we had Erica Birdsong on the receiving end, and it basically hit her right in her wheelhouse, to be perfectly honest.
Just where she wants it every time, up above everyone's heads.
I can promise you, having played with some tall players, they don't want it at their knees.
No.
So we've gotten into a little bit of a rhythm here, Daniel, as the game has gone on into the second quarter. I'm curious to see, we've got different D-line personnel rotating through for the Radiance, but curious to see if they throw a bit of a curveball here. Maybe try to seize some of the initiative. We saw DC scoring a pull play huck last point.
Stanland sends down the pull.
Vert stack from Shadow.
With Flores running the point. I think we have a call, maybe a travel on the throw?
No, a little traffic at the front of the stack where they were trying to initiate this play between McGuire, Cutler, Maddie Pletsky.
Yeah, certainly not everyone set there. I think people were still trying to figure out where everybody needs to be.
Yeah, I think Lyra Olsen would do well to check in with her defense before putting that disc live, to be perfectly honest.
That sort of communication could be improved upon for sure. All right, now we're all set. But the throw from Flores, a rare mistake off of her hand. Just right into the dirt there. And Raleigh, can they take advantage of the cheap break opportunity? Big put for Plesky. She gets up, gets a hand to it, but unable to pull it down.
Pretty well executed away shot there for Maddie Pletsky in this battle of the former Great Lakes players between Pletsky and Kat McGuire. Big missed opportunity, though.
Richmond to Wallace. Wallace gears up for the big forehand downfield. Looking for Feder. Great throw on the money. Feder just outside the end zone. Long dump back finds Ritzman. Feder finds Rader just outside, and then finds her own space in the end zone for the DC score. So after the scare, DC does get the hold.
Yeah, really impressive forehand away shot there from Allie Wallace. That's, you know, for Shadow fans who have been watching this team since its inception, that's a major sign of growth for one of their most longest tenured and excellent players. That's right on the money for a player who threatens you in so many other ways, and if she's consistently connecting on shots like that, she's going to be a real problem for opposing defenses when deployed in this situation. Kudos to the Raleigh D-line for hustling back in transition, forcing the Shadow to work through those final yards with a few extra passes, but it was it seemed like a blown mark there on the goal line that exposed the final scoring pass.
So the offense is now starting to get a little bit of a grip hold of this game after some earlier struggles at the end of the first and start of the second quarter. Another mark of the lack of wind here. I have not seen a single pole go out of bounds yet today, Saul.
A couple of them have tried.
Big forehand over the back shoulder for Rippey. Great adjustment to the flight of that disc. And Rippey finds Julia Hoffman for the score. Boy, Rippey made that look a lot easier than I think it would have been for many players there, Saul, and she gets the assist as her reward.
Yeah, Caitlin Gross serves that nice forehand out to space for her good friend Mary Rippey. Had a lot of space to throw into and led her really far over that right shoulder, but no helping defenders in that space, and Mary able to run onto it pretty well there. And Julia Hoffman has a bit of a knack for catching those point-ending passes on the goal line there.
Led the team in goals a season ago. First year on the team doing that. Pretty impressive feat.
Yeah, interested to see how Raleigh deploys sort of their twin towers between Hoffman and now Erica Birdsong.
You got Claire Hackle that they can try
Claire
out there
Hackle,
as well.
another second-year player. A lot of second-year players really taking big strides for this Radiance team early in the season. I've been really happy to see sort of the consistency and the ability to create separation that Hackle brings to this O-line. All right, Daniel, big point here, 7-8.
Raleigh came so close to getting the break the last time they sent the defense out there, just really a fingertip away. And a turf throw from Feder will give Raleigh a short field opportunity. Can Wilson catch up? No, beyond the reach of the speedy Wilson.
So we've seen in multiple cases these DC throwers having trouble trying to squeeze those break mark throws between the mark and this lane poach. That has honestly been the source of the majority of their turns. Curious to see if they take an alternative approach.
Johnson finds Flores for the reset.
DC cutters very deep here.
Looks like we have a call that half the players are aware of and half are not yet.
Looks like Macy Hudson heard a foul call coming in from Kira Flores. It was a foul.
You could see the contact for sure.
Yeah.
The question is, you know.
Or maybe this is a contested contact call.
Based on the body language of Hudson, she may even be the one calling the foul here against
Right.
Flores.
Yeah, not sure about that one, but certainly, honestly, DC close to a turn on that under to McGuire. So there are other timelines where this call leads to the reversal of a turnover. But in my experience, it's almost never a foul on the offense in that situation.
Very, very, very rarely. Either way, the disc does stay with Flores. Wallace comes underneath. Katina Russell dumps it back to Flores. Julia Harris asks a lot of Flores for the reset, but she's up to it.
So far, so good for this D-line for the Radiance. Lots of deep cutters for Shadow, and I think that's largely a product of these really large negative resets that keep happening. Challenging to adjust to those perfectly on the fly.
Redder goes to the middle. Johnson makes the grab under pressure on Procha. Feder brushes it over to Kat McGuire.
Shot goes up.
Finally a downfield look, and it's wide open. Not sure what happened in the back of the Raleigh defense that allowed Lily Johnson to get so open, but after good pressure for the bulk of that point, DC ends up getting a pretty easy conversion out of it.
Yeah, that's a high quality, high intensity point there from both sides. We saw Feder 27 and Lily Johnson 31, both new additions to this team by my understanding, and really driving the play there along with Kira Flores. Feder really running off her throws with a lot of stamina late in that point, and then Lily Johnson seems to me that when she's given open green space in the deep space, she is pretty much automatic when the throw goes up. So I think the Radiants are going to be pretty happy with the resistance provided there, but at the end of the day, pretty impressive persistence and sustainable offensive patterns there from the Shadow.
Yeah, so I think where Raleigh would not be as happy as in the opportunity to break. Right, I mean, you get the short field opportunity, one throw goes awry, maybe a little bit rushed in their attack of trying to convert on that break. We've now seen a couple of opportunities come up just short on the positive side of the field with a chance to break from Raleigh.
Yeah.
Romero Pena on pulling duty this point for DC. Lyman and Yu getting things set up for Raleigh in the backfield. And Lyman uncorks a big old backhand looking for Rippey, who has the space. She hops it in for the score. That's as easy as you please for the Raleigh O.
Really interesting set there from the Radiance O-line. Unsure if this is a called counter or if this is just a couple veteran players making a read, but this is a split stack flood looking for Rippey coming down from the back, which Murphy seemed pretty wise to, and then Rippey turning this into a double move, pretty big deep cut out into, she's making a long under and then turning it into a full change direction deep cut into wide open deep space. Lyman holding the disc for long enough to let her rev that whole thing up, and no contest out in big space between her and Murphy.
I was wondering when we were going to see a huck from Lyman. I didn't feel like we've gotten a single deep look from one of the most talented throwers in the league. And that one, Rippey gave her plenty of space to work with, but a nice throw as well. Good conversion for the Raleigh O. Now under a minute to go in the half, and this is where things get interesting with playing the clock. We did not see Raleigh execute the time play well at the end of the first. Interesting to see how they play it here.
Yeah, in 47 seconds, that's an abundant amount of time. A normal possession probably lasts roughly 30, maybe 40 seconds. So curious to see if the Radiants try to speed up DC at all, roll it out the sideline, shorten the field, fronting defense, anything like that, or if they just play this kind of vanilla and trust that, a normal possession is going to end up right around that 10 seconds left mark, and either they're going to have the ball with their D-line or they're going to get pulled to for the last possession of the quarter. And
it's important to remember that other than the fourth quarter, we do not have a hard buzzer in the PUL.
Adjustment to that this year, Daniel. No more buzzer beaters.
So even the fourth quarter doesn't
Even
have
fourth
one.
quarter
Okay.
and overtime, my understanding is we are all the way through last possession.
Okay. That is good
at
to
the end of quarter, which personally I'm a big fan of. I think the last possession is a really intriguing rule change relative to traditional USAU, and I think there's more opportunity for strategy in that regard than necessarily a buzzer beater, which
I like
connects.
the potential of the buzzer beater, but it's so rare that you see it really, become anything exciting. So it also feels like a safer play rather than hoisting up something that every player on the field is underneath at the end of the game.
This
yeah,
is interesting. I'm
change
seeing
to
a
C.
no-mark defense here from the Radiance. Unsure if that's just a blown matchup or not.
Looks like they're matched up all the way across now. So perhaps a miscommunication at the start or an interesting wrinkle defensively as we see that one going over the head and beyond the reach of Feder. We do have a whistle, though.
Looks like DC coaching staff with a really clutch timeout call there, as Raleigh seemed to have them stuck exactly where they wanted. 13 seconds left on the clock here.
Yeah, that's a timeout that saved a turnover right at midfield. So excellent use of the timeout from the DC coaching staff.
So now the equation kind of changes, Daniel. Are you sort of playing for the turnover and risking allowing an easier goal here, or are you throwing out a pure defensive line, playing more contained defense, conceding final possession, but just trying to make sure you don't concede a point here?
I think you have to make sure you don't give up the goal. That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
I think going into the third quarter down a point for Raleigh is a good situation to be in with the way the game is trending right now. I think you really just can't afford to let DC run down the clock and then get a score.
Right.
So, if you get the turn quick, maybe you want to call a timeout and think about it then. But I think priority one has to be just not letting DC build on that lead going into the half.
Yeah. Very curious to see if we are shown some sort of junk set here from the Radiance, maybe a big old cup. Ask Flores to throw something higher risk over the top, but I suspect that they're going to fall into something akin to what you're describing.
It is definitely defensive personnel out there rather than what you'd expect to see on a universe type point for Raleigh, for what it's worth. And McCole on the mark for the Radiance. Ellie Wallace makes the grab and resets back to Flores. Near block by Procha. Somehow makes it way, though, into the hands of Johnson as the buzzer goes and snatched away by Cole, but that will do it. No chance for Raleigh to go the other way, but that's a good defensive stand for the Radiance. And so DC will take a 9-8 lead into the halftime intermission. We've got a good one here.
Looked to me like maybe a partial hand block on the mark there from Tanya Proch, Daniel. Just on that first replay.
We can certainly give her credit for it. I won't take that away from her or from you. But folks, we have wrapped up what has been a stellar first half. We will take a halftime break here along with the players and be back for what shapes up to be an exciting second half. just about set for the start of the second half between Raleigh Radiance and DC Shadow. We got a 1-goal thriller so far. Really back and forth action in the second quarter in particular. But it looks like we will not be getting off to a smooth start here in the third quarter. Got a whistle on the PUL.
Head observer Daniel Wong not pleased with our clock operator.
I think we have to cut our clock operator some slack here. I believe she's like a 14-year-old volunteer today, so.
Give us a chance to shout out 42 Meg Duffy, commuting to play for her hometown team this season after a long run playing for the Austin Torch. On the PUL.
And Duffy knocking off her third team on her PUL tour. She did say to me before the game, she has thought about maybe trying to play for every team in the league and immediately dismissed that idea.
Well, who did she play for before Austin, Daniel?
She played for the now defunct Columbus Pride.
Oh, good deep cut.
Yes, yes. I still think she should go for it. You know, you get into the latter years of your career, you bounce around a little bit, get a little bit of a journeywoman career in you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think she should rule it out. We do see that pull go out of bounds. Our first such pull of this game is DC get to start it on offense here in the second half. Kira Flores, who was so pivotal to any DC success offensively, finds Sydney Rader. But that one out of the hand of Rader, too hot for Kat Ritzman.
Perhaps seeing a lurking Nat Baumgarten in the break space there.
Macy Hudson with it for Raleigh. Raleigh really was not starved of break opportunities in the first half. It was more of a struggle with finding ways to convert them, as we see that throw from Nat go sailing OB.
We got a wide open Kat Ritzman in the deep space.
And that's about as easy a score as you'll see in the PUL as Raleigh gets lost in the transition defensively. And despite the turnover, DC does get us started here in the second half with a hold.
Yeah, maybe a little halftime rust there from both sides. Inside shot from another hometown player, Sydney Rader, coming back to the triangle after very successful youth and college career in the area.
I have to give my shout out to Sydney. My first season calling Radiance games, she was in your spot, Saul. She was my co-commentator. Did a great job in the booth with me. So, while of course we are Radiance hometown commentators through and through, I can't begrudge my former colleague Sydney on her successes out there.
Yeah, the question becomes, Daniel, for this Raleigh D-line, at what point in the game is the coaching staff comfortable burning one of their 2 second half timeouts? Certainly, you don't want to be without it when you need it, but in a game like this, at the end of the day, it may come down to that one goal at the end, and if you had cashed that one in the mid-third quarter, perhaps you're not trailing at the end.
And this is something we talked about with the coaching staff about having this game be so early in the season. I think ideally, Saul, you probably like to see your players pass a test. Like, can that defensive unit find a way to convert?
Another pull play huck from Audrey Lyman. Holy moly.
Hits Gross in stride for the score so quickly I didn't get a chance to finish my points. But a perfect connection between Lyman and Gross, and Raleigh answers with style.
So game management aside, if the Shadow D-line can't provide any deep help from the weak side here, and Lyman there painting that throw back to that right sideline, so even if a late defender was there, her edge is giving the offense an advantage. I expect an adjustment from the Shadow here after pretty much back-to-back first throw holds.
To get back to the point I was making there.
Please.
It is an interesting balance because this matchup between these two teams is so important. Raleigh feels like to win the division, they probably have to win this game. But also it's so early, do you not want to see what that defensive line is capable of? If they can figure out a way to get breaks that may be pivotal towards the tailor end of the season. So it's, I think, difficult to find that balance for this coaching staff.
And I think that varies team by team as Lyra Olsen launches a monster pull I think, some teams are going to be comfortable with those turns early in the season because they're giving the opportunity to their players, and some teams are going to say, it's getting late early in this league, shot goes up.
McGuire, Jenny Way is there defensively. She had positioning the whole way. It makes it look easy in the end to grab that interception. Lila Stanlin has it for Raleigh. Nice sliding grab by Wilson to save possession. Sadie Cutler looks to get it off the sideline, does so with a bendy one to Olsen. And that one too high for Cutler on the first try. Does she really didn't know? Not on the far side on the second try either, so DC takes back over. But that short throw, it looks like we have a foul call. I thought that one was just behind Fetter, but looks like she's arguing that contact prevented her from making that catch.
Yeah, maybe a little hand contact there. Really unfortunate turnover for the. I'm sorry, I keep saying unfortunate, Daniel.
It's because I made a comment about not liking to say it. Now it's in your brain. I'll take
Sadie
full
Cutler, she was running ragged around there, and it didn't seem like Flores was, had much interest in working hard enough to play tight defense there. But it's too bad that the Radiance offense wasn't able to punch that in there. But Olsen here with another opportunity, walking up to tap it in.
But immediately taken right back. Flores gets the defensive play and is the target in the end zone, and she has the steps for the easy score. So yet again, the Raleigh D-line gets a couple of turns, but the offense just not clicking well enough the other way, and DC holds.
Yeah, Kira Flores maybe got an earbud in there, heard me calling her out for a defensive effort, and puts her stamp on the closing features of that point. Nice run-through block and keeps that train rolling all the way into the deep space with a beautiful shot from Fetter out into space. No contest from this Radiance D-line once Kira got up to speed there. Nice response from the shadow O-line.
So, yeah, the break opportunities keep mounting for Raleigh, but so do the D-line O turnovers. So, yeah, that feels like the difference in the game right now. We don't have a count up here, but I would venture to say that Raleigh has generated more turnovers.
We got another 14-year-old volunteer who can keep stats for us, Daniel.
We're very appreciative of all of the volunteers we have out here. I mean, honestly, the PUL doesn't run without volunteers. So I'm not going to beg for more for some stats in game.
Number one Radiance volunteer is the woman who happened to get that block in the deep space last point in Jenny Way.
LNU catches that floaty pole. Directs traffic, but ends up finding an open Gross on the far side. That one is low and inaccurate as well. Looking for Hackle, but didn't really give Hackle a chance to make a play on it. Hits Gentilette, but that disc will go back after a pick call.
First real look at this personnel group for a long time, Daniel. Let's see if this Radiance O-line defense has made any adjustments. Got Caitlin Gross on Murphy downfield.
Beans on the far side. That's Amanda Murphy. And this one looks like it's tailing away and swatted away for good measure. Erica Birdsong there to make the play just to be certain. You just saves that one from what would have been close to a Callahan. Hoffman pops to Lyman running up strike. Birdsong taken out a little bit by Gentilette on the slip.
Unfortunate that Hackle put on a nice move downfield, little double move release to get open underneath. Hopefully we can still hit her here.
Korpinen, I think, may have got a hand to that, but Lyman able to save the reset anyway. Gross with a nice cut to get power position. Hackle comes across. Birdsong is open, but Hackle thought better of the shot. And that one, I think, intended for Lyman, but finds its way to Hoffman. Probably not how they drew it up there, but Raleigh does get the hold.
Big, big, big conversion there, Daniel. Working really hard, all of those Radiance cutters to gain separation. Gross with Murphy tight on her back. Birdsong obviously with a crucial intervention down on this far side cone on that shot to the end zone from Murphy. And then Julia Hoffman with her head up gets that long up line that was just out of the reach of Audrey Lyman. But the handler pressure from the shadow defense was really excellent at that point, and I think something that a DC fan is going to be very reassured by going into the second phase of this game, as the legs on both teams maybe start to tire just a little bit. Saw Claire Hackle load up the hammer there. I kind of wanted to see it go up. It was a good idea.
The look was there. I think she really would have beaten herself up for not taking it if she then turned the simpler strike cut, but thankfully Hoffman was there to clean it up for her.
Really is the challenging fallacy of our game is a turnover that you throw because you pump a better throw earlier in the count. It's hard to know where that line lives sometimes.
Duffy hustles down after the pull. It's the mark on Flores. Richmond to Wallace. Back to Flores. Feder now for DC. Johnson on the far side. Back to Feder as DC really working it right through this Raleigh defense. And easy as you please. Not sure the stall ever got above 3 on that point for DC as they work it expertly for the hold.
Yeah, that's good. That's good film room material for the Shadow O-line. They started with a really interesting split stack initiation with Allie Wallace making a nice long double move into the deep space, which created a huge lane for Kat Ritzman to get open for a big 25-yard gainer to start, and then hitting Wallace on an under with Kira Flores powering up for a pop out. When you get that first half of the field with your top producers all operating out in good space, you got a lot of legs left for the rest of the point, and DC firing on all cylinders there.
And Richmond's such a good churner. She's just like that prototypical middle of the offense player who is just always grinding.
Left-handed too, and she's some left-handed players, they don't know that they're left-handed. But in my experience, I think Kat plays with little knowledge of how she can take advantage of her wrong-handedness.
Made her breakthrough playing mixed with Minneapolis Dragon Thrust all those years ago. After being a star player in Delaware. One of the, not exactly a powerhouse ultimate program, but Kat got to be one of the ultimate prides of that program, as we see another hook deep from Lyman and hauled in by Mary Rippey between a pair of DC defenders. Wasn't sure that look was going to work from Lyman. Rippey's there to bail out her teammate.
Audrey says, shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot, Daniel. Until she misfires, I suspect that backhand's going to keep coming early and often. Maybe missed an opportunity to hit a big gainer to a fill cutter underneath, but Mary Rippey takes the position once again, liking her matchup with Murphy in the deep space, and the help defender just not quite positionally, not able to gain a good enough position to contest in the air there.
Saul, when I think of Mary Rippey, I think of tenacious defense, never-ending motor, prototypical just grinder. But the last couple of seasons, she's really taken on a very prominent role in this team's offensive production. We've certainly seen it today. Really been fun to see her grow into this different role to help the team.
Yeah, I think that's what I was commenting on earlier in this game. Like, every year players come and players go, and people have opportunities to take on roles that they maybe don't traditionally fill, and given the opportunity, players can develop those skills, as we see another beautiful pull from Lyra Olsen. Little junk set from the Radiance D-line.
Johnson has it on the far side. Flores wheels all the way around to find the disc off the side. Fouled from behind by Naomi Anderson.
Yeah, you want to see Anderson slide in front there and not concede the inside shoulder. You know, make some legal contact earlier in the cut instead of sort of finding yourself fouling on the catch.
Wallace to McGuire down the line. Flores to Wallace. Nice switch defensively from Raleigh. Johnson drops it back to Rader. And the nice find of Katina Russell at the front cone. DC punches in another hold.
Yeah, Shadow looking comfortable on offense. Curious to see, you know, we've seen a forehand force pretty much the whole game from the Radiance. Curious to see if changing it up here, perhaps going backhand. I know we saw a little bit of bracketing out in the lane, but that was short-lived there. Yeah, Shadow in a rhythm right now, and certainly Kira Flores looking comfortable, you know, attacking these handler switches. The whole DC Shadow sort of depth of their O-line looking comfortable operating in their system, and I think if things carry on status quo here, I would expect the Radiance O-line to crack a little bit before the Shadow O-line. So I'm curious to see what the coaching staff for the home team are going to pull out of their back pocket to try to, you know, change the course of things.
If Raleigh can do anything to slow down Kira Flores, it feels like it would go a long way. She has been the juice for Shadow's offense all day.
Yeah, and I think that we've seen their success against her defensively come when they force her to go backwards and ask her to break a challenging mark. She's been running wild on them when she's been able to get positive and, you know, really get moving down the field.
Lyman finds Gross to get quickly across midfield. LNU now. Yu brings it to Shikuski, who hits Birdsong underneath.
Foul call off the ball here between Sourbeer and LNU. Radiance offense running hard here, winning open side yardage in a backhand force. Another opportunity for them to demonstrate some sort of sustainable patterns here in this yellow zone, red zone type area. A couple handlers operating with Birdsong and Rippy ready to step in with Murphy covering. This is the stuff, Daniel. These are great matchups out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we mentioned this with the coaches before. As we see that one go off the fingertips of Rippy, and now DC might have a fast break opportunity. Gentilette is right at midfield, drops it back to O. And now Sourbeer is totally unmarked. Maya Kikuchi gets it back to Sourbeer, finds O. Big moment in this game. Can Raleigh find a way to get the disc back, avoid giving up what would be their first surrendered break of the half? Birdsong's bid is a little late, and that leaves an open forehand for Gentilette. Back of the end zone is Mueller. Nice work by DC. Survived the early frenetic period after that turnover, and then patiently work it into the end zone for their first break of the half.
Yeah, that's a lot of class from a lot of veterans on this Shadow D-line. I've long been a fan of Jess Sourbeer's game. She throws with a lot of conviction. She throws with good edge, and you know, combining that skill set with Jess O and Gentilette, I think that gave that line a lot of composure and, you know, the ability to get out of sticky situations. And then again, we see Birdsong, you know, millimeters away from a block there, but that exposes the whole field for Gentilette to bend in a forehand. And even though her cutter seemed to be starting the cut from in the end zone, she's painting that back corner to Ellen Mueller for a crucial break here, 14-11.
And I do think that was a bit of curse the commentator there, as we just started to sing the praises of the quality of these two offenses. But just this game in general, when we talked to DC's coaching staff ahead of the game, we mentioned that we know they're going to play twice, these two teams, this regular season. But no one will be shocked to see them face off a third time in the playoffs. That's just been the quality of these two programs over the last several years. You kind of expect both of them to be in the conversation of the postseason at the very least. And certainly getting our money's worth on this Premier Ultimate League game of the week.
Flood play for Jenny Way.
Way resets to Anderson. Olsen in the middle. And now Cutler with it. It's Plutsky who comes underneath for the reset. Nice forehand to Wilson on the far side. Jenny Way unleashes the big forehand, looking for Stanland. Snatched away out of the air. Cara Tinson gets big.
That's a fantastic block for the shadow. Jenny Way liking that look with the fading forehand of Stanland, but the taller defender really high pointing that disc impressively.
Big test now for Raleigh defensively as Wilson tries to make the play defensively and does, but it ends up in the hands of Rebecca Driver for the DC score. We saw one of those go the other way for Raleigh. DC, the fortunate ones this time around, and they punch in another break.
Huge break for the shadow. This D-line, without their more well-known contributors with Murphy on the sideline, Gentilette on the sideline, we saw a really, really impressive block there from Tinson, and then attacking back the other way. Impressive speed on defense there from the Radiance from Natalie Wilson, but sometimes when you're up at full speed and you're giving your all, it's hard to get hand on plastic enough to really force the turnover. People the Monday morning quarterbacks can say catch your blocks, but when you're given everything you got to try to get out in front of your matchup, it's sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, that certainly seemed like a situation where all you can do is try to get to the disc and hope for the best. Don't think you can put that one too much on Wilson's effort, but does set us up for a very curious final 2 minutes of this quarter now, as all of a sudden DC has gotten it back up to their largest lead of the game, 4-goal advantage. Closing out this quarter strong, of the utmost importance for Raleigh now. High release from Gross finds Hoffman, who wants the rest of it right away, looking for Hackle as the height, and the grab for Claire Hackle. Raleigh knocking on the door. Lyman finds Birdsong, who brings it all the way around with the sweepy forehand to you, and just what the doctor ordered for Raleigh. They punch in the quick hold.
Yeah, you got it, Daniel. This, one interesting thing about this Radiance O-line is there is a ton of height out there. They've got Hoffman, Birdsong, and Claire Hackle all pushing 5'10", 5'11", almost 6 feet at times, without Claire Bidigary Curtis this week. But there, Julia Hoffman, not necessarily asked to be picture perfect with that throw. She just serves it up there for her receiver with a lot of height advantage, and I think that's, at times in the modern game we look down on that, but that's high percentage offense as far as I'm concerned. Let's see if the Radiance D-line can get some traction here after getting back on the field.
Fans dig the long ball, so,
now everybody gets to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that was the throw that Hoffman was quite looking for, but Hackle provided the wiggle room, the margin of error needed to make the play.
Yeah, great teams lean into their strengths, and there's no need to put yourself in a box offensively if you've got, certain talents that are going to be a strategic advantage over your matchup.
Ritzman gets wide open in that junky defensive look. And Allie Wallace looks to put it to the end zone and does successfully. Well-weighted throw from Allie Wallace finds her target for the score.
Kat McGuire getting loose in the end zone there, and more textbook stuff from the shadow O-line operating out of this vert stack. We saw Allie Wallace charging off deep from shallow, blown switch in the stack, and we saw McGuire getting wide open under as a result. Wallace open underneath in the second life of her cut, and then she's got McGuire turning the page with a defender looking over the wrong shoulder. That was maybe the backhand force I was asking for, but didn't quite execute on getting the traction there.
No, you allowed a couple really unmarked throws, you know, so didn't feel like you got a good full look at the backhand force test there.
Yeah, and I'll be perfectly honest, Daniel, I think the vert stack is not really in vogue these days, so I'm curious if teams sort of at large are as fluent with how to navigate the traditional vert stack pull plays that, you know, people of our generation are more familiar with. That was a simple front of stack twist, and, you know, cutter going to the opposite side just didn't quite navigate the switch correctly.
I do have to remind myself sometimes that the players we're watching play Ultimate are not from our generation.
Yeah.
It does feel a little humbling to have to say that, but we approach the 1 minute mark as we see that throw end up in the dirt. And so a bit of a giveaway there from Raleigh presents DC with another break chance, and they've been very efficient with their last couple of chances this quarter. And Gentilette thought about another big forehand. Oh, has done such a nice job this game of just being an ever-present option on the reset for this D-line offense. And now we see Jackie Wong pushing the pace a bit. Can Birdsong win against Gentilette? No.
Wow.
Inbounds as well. Ashley Gentilette showing what she's made of. Big grab, and DC breaks again.
Oh yeah, that's high octane stuff here, Daniel. That's the throw to the matchup that the neutrals at home want to see. There's a really, really impressive athletic play from Gentilette, getting up to high point the disc, and then having the wherewithal to get her toes back in behind her. Oh yeah, that's in the league as well.
What a play by Gentilette. And Birdsong even got a hand to it.
Oh yeah.
I think she might have gotten a hand to it first, but Gentilette showing you just how she's made her name in this league for years. Let me get a look at the crowd that got a bird's eye view of that play just a moment ago. Our home crowd here, the Carolina Friends School in Durham. Very much appreciate the home fans coming out to our new place for home games this year. Much more intimate atmosphere than we get in the Durham County Memorial Stadium of the past. So very thankful to be able to play our games here. We also get a beautiful grass field, which is a big improvement as well, I think, in the eyes of many.
The purists among us are thrilled at this change of venue. And, you know, we've exchanged the brutal crosswind for really nice, gentle conditions.
Gentle conditions, though, not enough for Anderson as the wheels starting to fall off a little bit for Raleigh offensively. Another just pure giveaway. And with just 15 seconds or so left in this quarter, DC now has a chance to take a very commanding lead all of a sudden into the fourth. Can Raleigh hang tight defensively and just get the disc back? There goes the buzzer. So this will be the final possession. But again, of the utmost importance for Raleigh just to hold DC at bay. Korpanen and then juggled on the side by Kikuchi, much to the relief of the Raleigh defense. DC unable to punch in that break chance, but they will go into the fourth quarter with their largest margin of the game, up by 5. Tough task ahead for Raleigh, but with how we've seen their offense perform at points in this game, it's certainly not over yet. We will toss to a quick break and get set for the fourth quarter. The Discraft Ultrastar is the official disc of the Premier Ultimate League. Discraft, the world leader in disc sports. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Premier Ultimate League. The PUL is a 501c6 nonprofit. This league has been community funded since day one. We are so grateful for the support. After a few missed opportunities defensively from Raleigh as well. And all of a sudden, it's a real tall task here to get back into this one. But they do start the fourth quarter on offense, so we will need to see a good offensive start here from Raleigh. And apologies again for those technical difficulties to get us started here in the fourth. Hopefully we are with you nice and clear now. Disc with Emily Shakuski. Andre Lyman quickly snaps it to you, who finds Hoffman as Raleigh enters the red zone. Hoffman steps around the mark very well. Fine, Shakuski. So for the comeback to start, Raleigh did need to start smoothly on offense. They do just that. Get the hold to start us in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, real comfortable hold for the Raleigh O-line. A nice location on that throw from Hoffman with Murphy coming down, looking for a potentially floaty pass into the break space, but right to the chest of the heel spiking Emily Shakuski. And now it's go time for this Raleigh D-line. Curious to see if we see the coaching staff tightening up lines here. We've seen Tanya Procha make an impact today. Jenny Way always liable to get the disc for this Raleigh D-line offense.
Also like to take this break as an opportunity to shout out to our longest running gold sponsor here at the Raleigh Radiance, Lori Marcy Real Estate. Like the Radiance, Lori is dedicated and competitive. She's always aiming for the ultimate victory, finding you the right home. Reach out to us for her contact info or to her directly for any home realtor needs. DC going to try to maintain their home atop the lead here. We have seen some miscues from them on the offensive side, but for the most part in this half, Raleigh has not been able to take advantage of them with breaks. And the last few points out have been just about perfect for them. But this one bounces off the hands of Feder, and she saves it on the second attempt. Little extra action for the highlight reel there. Now DC trying to get it off the sideline, unable to do so. Looks like we have a call of some sort. That one was intercepted by Emma Cole.
Really terrific dump defense from Macy Hudson there. Unfortunately, the degree to which that throw is off the mark looks suspicious for a possible foul on the mark, but you'd love to see. Okay, they're going to leave it as a contest. So this disc is coming in, I believe, at 8. Oh, Nat Baumgarten with a very honest stall count.
Yeah, Daniel Wong gives us the 4. So DC will have to earn the turnover once again. Or Raleigh will, excuse me. Flores finds Ritzman. That connection has just been so prominent for the DC offense this game. Not this time, though. Harris unable to connect with Flores the reset, and so Raleigh does earn the break chance. Can they finally find a way to punch it in? It looks like
yep, there it is.
Jenna Dahl going to go to the timeout right away. So that there, I think, perfect indication of the urgency with which Raleigh knows they have to take these break opportunities now.
Yeah, Kira Flores trying to stay, one step ahead there. She's been cutting for that backwards reset behind her thrower all point. Tries to take a jab there and power up into the upfield space, but her thrower thinks she's just too open and can't hold off on throwing that dish backwards. So you hope this is the start of something important for the rest of this quarter for the Radiance D-line, and hopefully the O-line can convert here with the smooth possession, starting right in the middle, right near the brick mark. I suspect we see 45 Caitlin Gross getting things started for us from the front of the stack to start this possession.
It'll be Lyman with the disc in her hands to start. As the DC defense gets set. Lyman gets you in the middle of the field. Rippey sprints it down. Hackle drops to you, who finds an open Hoffman, but we will have a pick call. Hoffman does not look pleased about it.
That's the old, you stopped running when you got picked, and now I'm open by more than 10 feet, so therefore it's not a pick, right, Daniel?
I think it really depends on which side of the disc you're asking that question, Saul.
Oh, man. I think that's a pretty reasonable resolution there. That seemed like a reasonable margin.
Contact this time on Hoffman after the grab. Hoffman slices a forehand into Birdsong. And now a little bit more finesse on that forehand from Julia Hoffman to Audrey Lyman, and Raleigh punches in the break.
That's a good looking possession for the Radiance O-line coming in after that timeout. 3-goal game. This is a substantial margin to come back from, particularly with the clock as an element here. But you can't ask for much better from the Radiance O-line. Again, I'm curious to see what kind of personnel we see trotting out here for this Radiance D-line. I think they've probably got, 4 to 6 real shots at breaking for the rest of this game, and they're going to need most of those if they're going to, legitimately contend for this game at the end, to at least bring it within 1 with less than a minute left.
I'd like to take this pause in the action to send a big thank you to Wellsport Bodyworks and Carolina Pain and Performance for keeping our athletes loose. Their practitioners will deliver deep tissue treatments with that help. Injury prevention, recovery, performance improvement, mindfulness through movement, athletic endeavors, and more. Come talk to us at the medical tent for more information. Yeah, just the start to this quarter that Raleigh needed here. Here is Flores for DC. Easy reset to Feder. And then great poach block by Lila Stanland. The savvy veteran gives Raleigh a short field as they look for another break. Great break throw from Lyra Olsen. Jenny Way has that one pop out of control there. Looked like a good opportunity to punch it in, and now Way will have a chance to make it up defensively. Unable to make the play, though. Nice grab downfield by Lily Johnson for another score for the DC Cutter. Will Raleigh live to rue that chance? Such a golden opportunity to get another break.
Yeah, that's a real heartbreaker for the hometown fans, Daniel. That was finally the Radiance D-line has been sagging those handlers out into that sort of in-between space all game. They finally get like a true block from it. And then in the transition, I will be perfectly honest. I think that the touchy 7-yard upline forehand to avoid the stack help is the most under-practiced throw in the game. And I think that was, a really, really challenging turnover there, mistake there.
Yeah, you saw the frustration from Way in the body language after the turnover. And we will just be sure to give a thanks to Breakmark in case it got cut out when we were having some technical difficulties. This live broadcast, the Premier Ultimate League, is brought to you by Breakmark Ultimate Apparel. Go to breakmark.com to place your next custom team order or check out the PUL Athlete Collab shops.
We should shout out Lily Johnson for that fantastic grab, though.
Yes.
She's being hawked down by one of the sort of longest tenured and at times feared defenders in the league, and she goes up with a lot of confidence and brings it down without question.
Premier big play maker, Jenny Way. But yeah, she, I think, will feel like she owes the Radiance one after the turn and unable to get it back defensively the other way. So we see Rippy rip a backhand downfield, and Birdsong, a lot of contact on that one. She will call foul.
Yeah, that's a nice looking deep throw from Rippy and serves it into a fantastic area for Birdsong. I think she is in the right to call foul here. Good contest from Gentilette, but I think that she has gone right through the body to make that play.
We will take another look.
Oh yeah, Erica takes the right line there, and Gentilette with no chance to, or hasn't taken a line that allows her to. Oh, we're going to leave it as a contest.
We're going to contest. So back to the throw, and I want to shout out our cam op on that end zone camera, Mason, who did a spectacular job in his first ever game as a camera operator.
Mason, notably not 14 years old.
No, he is a fully grown adult. But doing a great job on cam ops down there in that end zone to give us a great look at that replay. So Raleigh will have to go once again. And Lyman finds Shakuski downfield. Perfectly weighted pass. Birdsong stretches out around to connect with Hoffman for the score. So on the second chance, Raleigh takes advantage. They get the hold.
Often a sort of a space where you have an opportunity to struggle as an offense coming back from, a contested play down the field. You're starting out of a stoppage, which tends to favor the defense. Excellent touchy forehand from Lyman to lead Shakuski into that shorter deep space with that handler leaking down the line. And I must say, major pet peeve of mine, Ashley Gentilette setting up tight front hip defense out of that stoppage. That is not her positioning when that throw went up. Nothing against the player. It's just a pattern that I see in the game, and you got to go back to where you were when the throw went up. You don't get to set up your favorite defensive positioning.
You are preaching to the choir with that one, Saul. And yeah, it is certainly not specific to Gentilette. It is very widespread in the competitive
I think the offensive
ultimate
player has
community.
to stand up for themselves and
I agree.
say, give me
I
my
agree.
margin,
I wish I could remember who it was, but I believe it was during this past season's club Ultimate Championships. And there was a very similar situation where it looked like a player who fouled from behind was going to start the next possession defensively in the preferred defensive positioning, as you said. And whoever that player was, shout out to you, because you stood your ground and made them start from behind you, which is what should happen every time that occurs. So we see DC come across midfield as I'll step off my soapbox. Nice gainer up the line by Raider. And now Flores has plenty of space in the backfield. A lot of contact on the mark there. Miscue from Flores, throws it straight into the hands of Nat Baumgarten. But an underthrow from Procha leads to an easy interception for Ritzman, so it'll come back the other way, and a nice pop over the top to Raider from Harris. DC gets it back quickly, and just as quickly converts the hold.
Daniel, as we approach sort of crunch time here, you wonder, obviously some of the learning points from this game for the Radiance are going to be pretty clear. You wonder if they are going to move away from their softer, lane poach heavy dump defense style as the clock becomes more of a factor. That's a strategy that worked wonders for them as the Torch tried to press down on the gas and turn up their pace of play to come back in a game that was, more a game against the clock for the Torch than to a certain score. And so as the Radiance trail here, you wonder if they're going to have to change their perspective on, the optimal way to get turns. That being said, they've been pretty consistently turning over this shadow O-line in the fourth quarter, and it's been their inefficiency on a turn and inability to get into structure that has really bitten them. And they've only got, I believe, one more timeout to call in order to get the O-line back out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I would have hated to have disagreed with you there, Saul. But yeah, it does feel like the bigger issue for Raleigh has not been turnovers forced, but rather forced turnovers turned into breaks. You see the offensive unit back out there. Really, at this point, having to get holds and probably get them quickly to give the defense a chance to get those needed breaks. Rippey under a lot of pressure from Murphy, makes the grab, but lots of contact as well. Glad to see both players okay. That is one of the more fun matchups you'll see in this league, those two going at it. Two of the grittier, more athletic players that take the field in this competition. And as play resumes, Rippey quickly punches it into the end zone for Caitlin Gross and the Radiance hold.
And I think that's a couple of league veterans showing us sort of the level of intensity that top-level competition occurs at. It doesn't seem like there's any bad blood there. Obviously, it helps that there's an extended history between those two, but, challenging mark kept Caitlin Gross on that sideline, and she throws up a bit of a prayer to her teammate, and obviously Rippey makes a nice grab under heavy duress and then serves it up to Gross down the line. But, as long as everybody's safe, as long as everybody is agreeing to the same level of physicality, I don't think that the league necessarily needs to steer away from any of that type of play. Now, if Murphy takes a line that is taking out Rippey's legs, then that's obviously a different story. But I think that this game has been a pretty good showcase of the level of intensity we can see in Premier Ultimate League play.
Yeah, intensity, but, like you said, safe.
Oh, yeah.
As well, and seemingly agreed upon by both teams. It hasn't ever really felt chippy, which can be
a little bumping
the risk.
on the mark here and there.
Yeah, But no, it doesn't seem like from our point of view that we've seen any, elevated conflict beyond that.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you want to see in a game like this. Flores thought about going deep, but
smart holster.
Yeah, you saw Sandlin sagging a little bit. Ooh. Big contact between a pair of Radiance defenders, Olsen and Pletsky. And Olsen, the one who took the worst of that meeting. I certainly hope Lear is okay. She's had more than her fair share of injury woes in her long career. She will take a breather with Emma Cole coming on in her stead.
Harris looks like she is free down the field as a result of this poach that sent Lyra into that involvement in that underpass. See how the Radiants navigate this. Nice scuba to break through it.
Feder trying to find anybody, eventually finds Richmond. I think we have a stall called.
Nope, timeout from the DC offense.
Yeah, flag on the field. In the
Coach
PUL, that
getting
means it's
involved.
timeout. And they've had a couple of those where, I think that's good use of a timeout. Save you from a turnover, potentially draw up a play, maintain possession. And I think, you kind of alluded to Raleigh being in this position a week ago. DC very much in the position where maintaining possession is your key to victory, right? More so than even scoring at this point. So.
Agreed. And there we did see, the intensity on the dump defense was ratcheted up there for the Radiance D-line. We saw Stanlin taking the Flores matchup there for one of the first times we've seen this game. Flores may be getting just a shoulder advantage up the field, but by that point, Coach said, I'm done playing around with this possession. Let's re-rack.
And while highlighting the spirit of the teams, I would like to take this moment to share a statement from the Raleigh Radiance. We, the players of the Raleigh Radiance, wholeheartedly support the LGBTQI+ community. Raleigh Radiance is committed to providing a space where women matching players can thrive. In particular, we recognize the barriers that transgender women face, from legislation to social discrimination, and we want to affirm our support for transgender inclusion in sports. Furthermore, we are committed to fostering a supportive and inclusive culture within our team and the broader Triangle Ultimate community, especially for youth Ultimate players. And I think, as we highlight the ups and downs of this game, it is very important to keep in mind the true spirit of this league and its founding nearly a decade ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about. We see as play resumes, Duffy going to self-call the foul almost there on the throw around from Flores. So DC does maintain possession. This time Flores goes over the top of the mark. Snatched out of the hands of Ritzman by Cole after she'd already made the grab.
Excellent job from the Radiance here. Ooh.
There's a curse to the commentator for you. If we didn't have one already, all alone in the end zone for the easy score is Julia Harris.
And, to be perfectly honest, my analysis there was good job not arguing about any calls as the clock is your enemy here. So
okay, fair.
Jenny Way pulling up on a late poach. If she's a step earlier, maybe she's got a chance to make the play, but appropriately pulls up as she's got no clean line on that. Another high release into the break space, cashed into 31 Lily Johnson, who's had herself quite the day.
Yeah, Johnson really has. And again, that is, if you ask the casual fan to highlight the players who would have a big impact on this game, I don't know that Lily Johnson is jumping out to many people, but I think she's going to have to be one such player after this game for sure. Has had an impact downfield, has had an impact, at the mid-level, coming underneath for unders, and has had some nice throws to beat the Raleigh defense as well. Certainly beaten Raleigh today in a multitude of ways.
She just seems to have a knack for timing based on sort of my first initial impression of her game. She seems to show up when those possessions are getting a little bit longer and when they need her to
she's been the release valve.
Yeah, provide a second wave of the offense here.
Shakuski and Lyman exchange resets. Now Rippey comes underneath. Birdsong gains a good 10 yards before dumping it back. Hackle on the near side. Lyman hits Shakuski. Pinpoint forehand from Lyman to Rippey. But Raleigh still trying to find their way into the end zone, and there it is. Shakuski with the around forehand to Hoffman, who's proving yet again to be an important red zone outlet for this Raleigh offense.
All right, 20-17, 3:46 left on the clock. Certainly crazier things have happened, but we're going to need to see a real intent from the D-line strategy from Radiance to try to speed up this Shadow O-line. I don't think that it's going to cut it to, earn the disc after 30, 40 seconds of possession each time down the field. And I think certainly what we're going to need to see is a lot of conviction on the counterattack. Open throws to open receivers with people testing the deep space on a regular basis if the Radiance D-line is able to get the disc here.
Yeah, if this is not a must-break point for the Raleigh defense, we are very close to that point. But you're right, a quick score is more important for Raleigh. You can't get in a marathon situation here. It'll be Stanland on the pull. Flores just able to step through that mark enough to complete the pass to Ritzman. Stanland still applying that pressure defensively. Way comes up just short again. Raleigh really hunting for that turnover. McGuire. Stanland just short, and now Way will be tested defensively again. Wallace is the target. A lot of body contact downfield, but Way able to hold her ground and finally gets that deep block she's been looking for.
Love the urgency that I'm seeing from the Radiance D-line here. Stanland really applying a lot of pressure to Flores there. Nearly a layup block. Excellent backfield defense prior in the point, and then Jenny Way winning out against Wallace in a battle of real titans with the disc in the air from Flores out of power position. And Radiance got to go here. Can't waste time.
Quick reset to Anderson, and that one a little low. And that's been the turnover from Raleigh pretty often in this game, that low throw into the feet like that. And so now DC has a short field to try to convert the hold, and one cut from Kat McGuire will do it. So DC does give Raleigh a chance, but they're not able to do a whole lot with it. Shadow maintains their lead in this one.
Yeah, Daniel, it's easy for me to stand up here and make comments, but I want to see the Raleigh O-line out there when they get that disc. I want to see our last timeout called there. I know that they had a lot of offensive punch out there with that D-line, but at the end of the day, we can't take them home with us. There's no guarantee we're going to get another opportunity. And I think that you gotta put yourself on the front foot in that regard. Disappointed to see the outcome of that possession. I know it's just sort of an execution error, but that's a point of growth for the Radiance D-line moving forward. Need more efficiency out of them for sure.
Especially with the full field to go there. That is a tough ask of
Yeah.
a unit that has struggled to
Agreed.
consistently string passes together.
Now I expect the O-line to be moving very quickly here. Early opportunities to hit the deep space, I expect those to be going up.
You catches and centers to Lyman. No early deep cuts from Raleigh. Then he had a couple cutters cutting at the same time as well. Disc back with Lyman in the middle, but it's slow going here for the Raleigh offense. Still seeming to run their just standard O sets. And now Yu does put it deep, looking for Hackle. And I think Yu gave Hackle about as good of a chance at that one as she could, given the situation. Hackle did get hands to it, but unable to reel it in on what would have been a tough play.
Yeah, honestly, need to see a cutter offering for that look earlier in that possession.
Yeah, that turnover does feel like it probably is just about it for Raleigh. DC really under no pressure to push the envelope here.
Yeah, and I expect Murphy and Wang to be, thoroughly comfortable just sort of pinging the disc around the backfield. Multi-goal margin. This is practice field stuff, making sure you can maintain possession for a game-winning scenario.
think Gross might have gotten a finger on that one. Came out a bit wobbly, but Mueller still there for the grab. Wong spaces it out to the far side. In the hands of Avery Diocampo. Gentilette has it now. And play will stop for a call. Gentilette finds Mueller on the far side. Murphy comes underneath for it. As DC looks to put the finishing touches on this impressive road victory to kickstart their championship defense. Gentilette beats Birdsong underneath. Oh, we have a DC timeout call just as they were on the verge of completing a big pass downfield.
Coach not ready to get on the bus yet.
And that was Sourbeer with a nice power position forehand. Yeah, a little curious in that timeout call. I mean, DC certainly seemed to have the advantage in the moment there. But they will take their, what I believe is their final timeout in this one.
Well, Daniel, this has been a pretty impressive performance from the Shadow overall. First half, we saw it really dominated by veterans like Amanda Murphy, Ashley Gentilette, really doing things we're accustomed to seeing from them. But I think the balance of the game, we've seen, depth players stepping into O-line roles such as Lily Johnson and Fetter that I've been impressed with.
Yeah.
And then the D-lines overall have applied solid pressure, very few free points for the Radiance O-line throughout this game, and I think that this is a really strong victory for the Shadow to build on moving forward.
Yeah, it has been a very impressive performance from them at multiple lines, both offensively and defensively. And again, it's so difficult to come on the road and play this well, I think. And it is a testament to the institutional strength that we see with the Shadow year in, year out. Finally getting over that hump a year ago, I think they will be a tough nut to crack as they try to make it back-to-back championships in the PUL.
One more completion will do it here.
And there it is, Ritzman to Rader, and then Rader pushes it all the way to the far side for good measure.
It's two extra completions.
Just a little bit of catch between some friends here as DC winds out the clock on this one. They take their first win of the season and deal Radiance their first defeat on the year. DC, very impressive, and I think very deserving of their 21-17 victory, Saul. But for large stretches of this game, it was very back and forth, and I think on another day, where the Radiance can find a way to be a little bit more efficient with their own break chances, perhaps a game that we see go the other way.
Yeah, and I mean 21-17 is a stat line or a score line that speaks of relatively high conversion rate for both teams' offenses. Obviously, we see some scores in the league looking more like a club score, 15-8 last week for the Torch versus Radiance. So, yeah, I think this was obviously an impressive win for Shadow, and I don't think that there's anything from this game that leads us to believe Radiance can't get back to championship weekend. But, major growth points to take away from this game, to be sure, for this next matchup between these two teams in the future.
And I would like to squeeze in just a couple more shout-outs that I missed earlier in the game. Hey, Radiance fans, our athletes are in great hands with Select Physical Therapy on the sideline. The sports medicine team at Select PT helps our athletes recover from injury and prevent further injury. With convenient locations nearby, care is never far away. Go to selectphysicaltherapy.com to find a location near you. We'd also like to shout out O2 Fitness. The Radiance want to show our appreciation to O2 Fitness for their support of our athletes. Whether it's group fitness classes or personal training, O2 has the fit for you. With gym locations in Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh, there's an O2 Fitness Club convenient for you. Thank you so much to the Radiance's sponsors and the PUL sponsors as well to bring you this really exciting action in the PUL game of the week in week 2 of the season. It has been a good one, and thank you to you all for joining us as well. Without support from fans like you, we would not have this exciting league that does so much good for their local communities and the communities of the Ultimate Frisbee community in general. So thanks so much. It's been an impressive one for DC. They start their title defense with a win on the road against their top rival. Sets a fun matchup for their revenge match later on in this season, as we are just getting underway here in the PUL. For Saul, Yannick, I have been Daniel Prentice. Thanks so much for tuning in.